Oh, how good and perfect it is to be here. I was just quickly, I feel like everybody I speak to talks about being on the plane and just assuming every black person on the plane was coming here. And nobody has gotten on the microphone to say that yet, so I just feel like the universal head nod goes everywhere with you. So, thank you, Rashida, Simone, Tina, Sadia, all the organizers that wrangled us to be here today. I feel seen, and that is pleasant. All right, I'm just gonna dive in. So in Harriet Jacobs' Loophole of Retreat, she describes a tool, a gimlet that her uncle used to make the trap door, the space where she found refuge for 7 years. She says, and I quote, "One day I hit my head against something and found it was a gimlet. My uncle had left it sticking there when he made the trap door. I was as rejoiced as Robinson Crusoe could have been at finding such a treasure. It put a lucky thought in my head. I said to myself, now I will have some light. Now I will see my children. I do not dare to begin my work during the daytime for fear of attracting attention. But I groped around, and having found the side next to the street where I would frequently see my children, I stuck the gimlet in and waited for evening. I bored 3 holes, one above another. Then I bored out the interstices between. I thus succeeded in making one hole about 1 inch long and 1 inch broad. I sat by it till late into the night to enjoy the whiff of air that floated in. In the morning, I watched for my children," end quote. Now listen, to be honest with you, until I read Miss Jacobs' account of her time in the interstitial space of her uncle's house, I had only and must say exclusively heard or known of a gimlet to be an elegant cocktail of gin or sometimes vodka mixed, stirred and shaken with lime juice. But when I read Miss Jacobs' intimate and beautifully rendered text, I learned of a more useful, instructive definition for this word: a gimlet, a small T-shaped tool with a screw tip for boring holes. A gimlet, what a special tool. Wouldn't it be wise for one to carry a gimlet everywhere one goes? Wouldn't it be wise, intentional, or even freeing for me, for us, for Black women to walk around with the gimlet sewn into the hem of a sleeve, or depending on its size, tucked in like a $20 bill into our bras? Perhaps one should consider carrying a physical, metaphorical, or even theoretical gimlet. Just a little something for those times and conditions that feel precarious and unsafe. Imagine that for a second. Truly, imagine that. Think about those times when you were experiencing darkness and you needed some light to shine your way, to shine on you. Imagine being able to access your little gimlet in those moments or in those spaces when you were in desperate need of retreat or you needed to retreat. Wouldn't it be comforting to know that you had this little thing right here in your left bra? You could reach for that gimlet, and like Harriet Jacobs, you can bore 3 rows of holes, one above one another. And you can, amidst your situation, quietly quietly, unbeknownst to anyone, succeed in making one hole about an inch long and an inch broad to enjoy a whiff of air that would undoubtedly float in. Sovereignty and self-determination and medicine, or approaches to physical, spiritual, natural, and supernatural ailments, were two of the prompts that were given to us. Today, I'd like to take a few minutes of your time, or a few more minutes of your time, to share some thinking I've been doing about narratives, or stories, or paths for self-determination, and or memory as medicine. Narratives are the stories we live with. They inform how we view and understand the world. They give shape and character to real events, imagined realities, and systems of power. Narratives art gives visual form to specific stories and the meanings they contain. They stretch across time, culture, and language, kind of like the head nod. I'd like to share some evolving thinking by introducing you to Miss Edie Jackson. Okay, oops. Can you go back? So this is Miss Edie Nat Jackson, also known as my mother or my maker. She was born in 1938 in rural Mississippi to my grandmother, who held the same exact name. And if she was a dude, she'd probably go by Junior, but instead they call her Sweet. Or as my cousin would say, ain't sweet. Every day she rises, she washes her face first with warm water and then with cold water. Immediately after, she applies red lipstick to her lips. She then presses and rubs her thin little lips together. She smacks them a little bit, just to ensure that she has them covered. Then she puts a dab of red lipstick on each of her cheeks. She picks up the mirror. She doesn't need it for her lips, but she needs it for the cheeks. She picks up the mirror and she just smooths it out a little bit. She smooths it across her very high cheekbones to make blush. She pulls out her pocket mirror just to hold it up so she can see it. She lets out a little chuckle and she says, just above a whisper, but also so the nurses can hear it, "You a bad bitch." Followed by, "Look at God." This woman has always run the streets with little to no respect for fear, literally. From rolling up, she uses a wheelchair, from rolling up on conversations at the corner spot, or arriving at Sunday service however she wants to at Union Springs Missionary Baptist Church, to attending funerals for friends that have gone on to be with the elders, followed by bingo and back. These last few years have delivered significant health challenges to Sweet, challenges that have changed her life and changed how she sees the world. As a result, she's gone from enacting her lipstick ritual and using her electric wheelchair like a car to traverse the city to needing round-the-clock care. This major shift in her health has come under the cover of dementia. And therefore, we are surrounded by bouts of stress, frustration, anger, and the balance of joy and happiness. My mother and I speak every day, where she reminds me that I am the fifth of her 5 children. I am not her mama. While our conversations are textured and extremely detailed, for the most part, they have become also very repetitive. Like the hook to a song that you like, but after playing it a lot, you're kind of like, oh no. This song for her feels fresh, though, every time she tells it within the stretch of 10 minutes. As her condition evolves, I have noticed that for her, time is elastic. I've learned that people with dementia can lose their sense of duration and their ability to comprehend how much time has passed and what state of time we're in. It is often experiencing what is called time shifting, meaning that she is living at an earlier time in her life, and she's talking to me as if I were there with her. Only I may not have even been born or been there, or I might have been there. This time shifting leads to her being disoriented and confused, and it sometimes affects how she understands the world, and it affects how we understand her. For the last few months, our conversations have either been repetitive, as I mentioned, but there's also been mainly shaped by her short-term memories. And on the other hand, there are those watershed moments where she shares detailed accounts of experiences, real, reconstructed, and sometimes imagined. Those moments seem to have been buried deep in her personal archives. Sometimes her words are gentle and full of tender, loving care, like when she says, "You know, God gave you to me. Girl, don't you know you divinely protected?" She says it like, literally, God walked up to her, handed her a beautifully wrought box, and she opened the lid, and there it was inside. Shiny and as sweet as can be. That's my rendition of that, but just to me. I like to think I got some of that name, but anyway. Then there are the other days when she is beside herself with anger and she is screaming with frustration for being misunderstood or being able to do what she is accustomed to do, singing out, "Oh my God, I'm old, I ain't dead. And I don't feel free." I was recently rereading Audre Lorde's Eye to Eye, Black Women, Hatred. She began by writing, quote, "Every Black woman in America lives her life somewhere along a wide curve of ancient and unexpressed angers. My Black women's anger is a molten pond at the core of me," she says, my most fiercely guarded secret. I know how much of my life as a wonderful feeling woman is laced through with this net of rage. She goes on to say, "It is an electric thread woven into every emotional tapestry upon which to set the essentials of my life. A boiling hot spring likely to erupt at any point, leaping out of my consciousness like a fire on the landscape. How to train that anger with accuracy rather than deny it has been one of the major tasks of my life," end quote. When I read this text by Lorde, I think of my mother in these moments. And I start to become unsure about if my mother is responding to dementia or her Black womanness. In any case, Lorde helps me understand the potential accuracy with which my mother is telling these stories. It is in these moments of complete frustration when I am witnessing my mother relive her life script that I wish I had a gimlet to give her. We recently packed up her apartment, and in doing so, I paid closer attention to what I saw than I ever have. She had papered the walls, she had collaged the walls of her apartment with images, items, objects that were of interest or of importance to her. There were these pictures of our family, our friends, including Michael Jackson, James Brown. Reverend Ike, if you're from, President Obama. These Walls were filled with awards, articles, and honors of mine, birthday cards we'd made for her, plastic flowers, obituaries, wedding pictures, knickknacks. I took this out, but I'm gonna put it back in because you guys seem like a friendly group. Karma Sutra images. When I stood back and looked at these walls, I realized that her apartment was an installation. And I was standing, unbeknownst to me, in the contours of her memories, in her hopes, her aspirations. I was in the loophole of her retreat. These objects, these things, these are her gimlets. These are the tools that she employs to bore holes through the opaque and inconsiderate slippage called dementia. Each of these objects she has brought to these walls allows her to access her life that she once knew, or how she hoped it was, or how she wished it would be. These are the holes that grant access to the air and the light. As someone whose work is about museums and making meaning in these places, and making them functional, deliberately usable for our everyday existence, and bound up in the everyday lives of people, I am moved by my mother's deep and incisive understanding of how to make lives relevant through things. And for years, I saw this as stuff. My mother, my maker, Miss Edie Mae Jackson, sweet, recently experienced her 84th rotation around the sun. And while celebrating, she kept telling us stories. We couldn't even interrupt her. She was like, I'm talking. I asked her for permission to speak here about her today, to you specifically. I described what I knew this room would look like, that it looked like her. And I described that this was a room of care, of this thing that she doesn't really know about or anything, like this scholarship thing, right? And that it was bred out of a sense of intentionality. I told her about Harriet Jacobs and the 7 years she spent in the loophole of her retreat. And she said, 7 years? What? She spent 7 years in that tiny little space watching her kids play? I said, yeah, among other things, yes, she did. And then she said, in the most complimentary way, now that's a bad bitch. I responded to her by asking her, do you think she wore red lipstick? Thank you all for allowing me to share this thinking. Thank you for allowing me. Thank you for allowing me to share this thinking. I've been really struggling with how to bring my worlds together. I don't come from this, but I come from this, And so I've been doing this work on narratives and all these stories, and I'm so grateful that I realize that these stories, these paths for self-determination, and that these memories are medicine. And I look forward to seeing you in 2025 as we dedicate this museum to the art of storytelling. And in the meantime, I might be selling gimlets soon.